Yes, Camp NaNoWriMo April is coming up. Can you believe that? So I'm here to just talk about briefly what I want to do for Camp NaNoWriMo and do a little NaNoWriMo prep. And then it's also going to lead into what I plan to do for my next few videos, which is going to be talking about some poetry. So first, my Nano goal is to write for volume. I want to write as much stuff as possible, and I'm not going to put a word limit on it or anything like that, but I simply want to go ahead and write as many pieces of poetry, as many vignettes as I possibly can, just to get that word count up. So that's what I'm going to be writing, is poetry and vignettes. So if I decide that there's a short story in there that I want to write, but I'm going for short pieces with impact, which is a poetry or a poem or a vignette. So let's talk about quickly what poetry is not. So many people think that poetry is only for smart people, or that it's overly academic and hard to understand, and that it always has to rhyme. And this, of course, is not true. It just happens to be that a lot of the classics are written in such ways that it makes it a little difficult to understand. But poetry, don't shy away from it simply because you think it's a difficult thing. It doesn't have to be. There's lots of imagistic poetry that is just very simple. So the next thing I want to do is talk about what poetry actually is. And it's a piece that's designed for immediate impact and emotion. Okay, it's to get out that image or that feeling that you are having right then and there. And you want to have an impact. Okay, it's written in a poetic form so that you have stanzas and lines versus prose, such as paragraphs and so forth. So there's really not a whole lot of anything to be afraid of. So what do you need in order to write some good poetry? You need a strong feeling that you have, or a strong image that you want to convey. And preferably you should have a wide vocabulary with precise wording. But even then, it's still not totally undoable, even if you do have a smaller vocabulary. It's really about that strong image or that feeling that you want to portray. So go for it. So finally, why do I love poetry and vignettes and those shorter pieces that have impact? Is because, one, I love playing with words. So I love all that description that you get. I love the way words sound together and the contrast of meanings and so forth. And it also helps me to do that immediate spilling out and puking out of whatever is in my head and in my brain. So if it's junk, if it's beauty, if it's poison, if it's anger, I can do all that, and it's perfectly okay. And that's really what poetry is seriously good for. It's to getting those emotions that you have out, to put out something out into the world that you want them to understand, to get out this image that you have in your head. Either way it goes, regardless of technique or type of poetry or format of the poem or anything like that, poetry is designed for the expression, that immediacy. You don't have all the words that you would have in a novel to sit there and take up 300, 400 pages. Instead, you have a few lines, a few stanzas, maybe a page, maybe 2 pages, and that's a lot for a poem. Now, of course, we're not talking about epic poetry, which is like pretty much novel length. We're talking about just that poetry that you can read in a sitting, that you could feel in a few moments, and get that impact from that other person or from yourself. And that's one reason why I do love poetry so much, because you can take all that stuff that is in you, throw it on a piece of paper, and you can master that. You can take it and transform it into whatever format that you want, but it doesn't have to take years and years and hours upon weeks to get out what it is you really want to say. And then, of course, if you are more into your speaking, then you can change that same poetry, that same poem, into, the spoken word poem. So that's my goal, and that's what I want to do for Nano, is to go ahead and spit out as much poetry, puke, and vomit as I can get out on my page and in my book. And then, just keep on going from there. And so I encourage you to do the same thing. And my next few videos will be about different techniques and information that you need to know to actually work on the craft of it. So for example, like connotation and denotation and different literary devices and so forth. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope this gets you inspired to do something of your own that may be a little shorter and, you know, more impact immediacy for Nano, or just to give it a try anyway. All right, see you guys later. Thanks for watching.